Hello, this is Bonnie, and today this is what we're going to be working on. This is from the new release. Actually, the last two releases from Fairy Hugs, and I'm also going to be doing a little bit of a different technique for the background. So I'm going to start with the background first, and then we'll get stamping. Let me get this all set up. Okay, so to get started on the background, I'm going to be using a gel press plate that is about 5 by 3 inches. I'm going to make sure that's correct. I'm measuring that for you. Pretty sure that's what that is. Yes, it is a 5 by 3. And you can use any size actually, but that's just what I decided to use for this time. And I'm also going to be using Lindy, I think it's Lindy's Gang, or Lindy's, yeah, magical shakers. And the 3 or 4 colors I'm going to be using is Time Travel Teal, and Glittering Gold, Afternoon Delight Denim, and Alpine Ice Rose. And all we're going to do to start is just, these shakers have 2 different sizes. One's a full size and one's there's a full size and then there's a shaker size. You do not need hardly anything on here to do what we're doing. So I just lightly tap it and get some of that powder on there. And the more you put, the more color you're going to get. And I'm not going with a big amount of color, but each time I do it, it's going to be different. Each time you do it, it's going to be different. Nothing is consistently the same. So, like I said, I'm just doing a little bit. That was the gold, and then this is the teal. The teal is very prominent when you do this. I really, really love this teal, and they all have shimmer to them. They're really, really pretty. Okay. And then the last one is the Afternoon Delight. You know, some of these also have a little bit of other colors in it besides the predominant color. So that's all you need. It doesn't look like there's much of anything on there, but that is all you need. And then you get your water out and you just spray that to reactivate that pigment. Now, it also makes a difference in how much water you put on. But that is, I want to just make sure I've activated, and I think I have. And that's what it looks like once you've activated the pigment powder. Then the next thing, you picked out whatever card base you want to use. And in this case, I believe this is a 5.5. Yes, 5.5 square. So we have the 3 by 5 on top of a 5.5 square. And then basically all you're going to do is flip that over on top. And you can put it wherever you want. And I put mine to the right. And as you can see, as you press down on it, it makes a design and it makes them all move around. And this is such a cool technique. Like I said, it changes every time. And the more you press, the more it gets moved around. So it just depends on what you want, your design, how dark you want it to be or how light you want it to be. And you can push down on the whole thing. I really like this stamping base. I don't know where I got it from, but I like because it's got the grip on it. So I think we've got a good design going there. Like I said, it doesn't really look anything like, so far, what I did on here. That's why I said it's really cool. You get a different design each time. So before I lift that up, I want to grab another piece of paper towel to grab the excess that comes to the side. So you just lift that up. And you can see how it all goes to the one side. And so I'm going to catch that up with paper towel. just like that. And that's the design that we get. And like you just create every time you make something, and it's based on whatever it is that you have made. That is just so pretty. So and the next thing I do is I just bring that over to my heat gun and I dry that up. And I'll be back. I want you to see that. Okay, so now we're going for step 2 for the background. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to be using, it's hard to see this, I'm going to be using this stencil from Fairy Hugs. It's called Fairy, I think it's Fairy Swirls, but I'm going to double check and I will let you know that for sure. But at any rate, I'm going to be using this for the other half of the card. And I'm going to be using Peacock Feathers because it matched really well with the time travel teal. That's what I try to do, is I try to complement whatever is on this side, what could match with that, and I knew that that color would work well. So I'm just going to lightly add this just to get a light background, and it goes with it. And like I said, each one's different, even though I showed you that one at the beginning. When you get a different design, you go on whatever it is that you have gotten. Let's see how that looks. I think that looks pretty good. I'm going to add just a little bit more up here. Yeah. Okay. So now we have a very subtle look to the entire card base. And you could put anything on that. You could just stop right now and go get your stamps and put whatever it is that you want on that. And it'll look really good. But what I am going to do for the edges, I am going to come by right now, seeing as I've got this out, and I am just going to go ahead and put this all the way around the edge. I usually don't have a paper towel down, but because it helps me blend a little bit better on a regular piece of paper. In fact, I'm just going to pull a piece of paper, I think, really quickly. Whoops. And that'll work better. Paper towel can work, but this works better to get the blend I want. Now you could also leave that white if you really didn't want it totally to be blended in, but this is what I did, so I'm going to go ahead and show you the technique that how I did it. I do love the look of that watercolor on the edges, so I'm not totally trying to cover that up. I'm just trying to make it blend in. So now we've got that look, and I think that looks really good for a start for a card base. So I'm going to go ahead and get the stamps together. Okay, so the stamps I'm going to be using are from Fairy Hugs, and the main stamp is going to be this Woodland Treat Cart. I am also going to be using the Woodland Florals, and I'm going to be using the Fairy Dwellers, the small fairies, and I'm going to be using, if everything works out like I did before, I'm going to be using the Sentiment as well. So I always call that before, audition the stamps in terms of where they're going to go. And this kind of helps me know the placement of the stamps. And before I even start stamping the main one, I want to know that all these are going to fit in that position. And that's basically what you can do. And then this one's going to go over here. So that gives that one plenty of room. So we're good to go. And so we're going to go ahead and stamp that. And what I've done this time is I'm using some color. And I'm hoping that this one shows up. Or what I'll do is I will stamp it in black otherwise. But as you can see from the original, I stamped this in a VersaFine Clear Warm Breeze. Now I'm going to hope that that will work for this one as well. That's my intention. It's kind of hard to make a card exactly the same when the design will always change in the background. So again, I'm using VersaFine Clear and this is Warm Breeze. I think what I would like to do is, if I can find that really quickly, yes, I am going to use a Q-tip swab, and I am going to take off as much of that line in the background of that card as I can, because I'm going to be putting flowers on that card, and the line can be subtle, but I don't want it to be prominent back there. So I just removed that. I'm going to show you. I just removed that ink from that line back there. And I'm losing my tape up there at the top. I need to fix that really quickly so I can keep that down. All right. We're all set up, ready to stamp. Let's get going. And you'll see what I mean. This line right here, I tried to erase as much as I could with that Q-tip. It could always still have a shadow, and that's okay because I'm stamping over that, but I really didn't want it a prominent line. And you can see it's slightly there, but it's not there. So I'm going to stamp it again. I'm going to have to do the same thing so I can show you. I didn't show you as great, but it needs, because I'm going on top of that ink and everything, I need a second pass. And again, I use this Q-tip, and I'm just wiping that away. Rotate your Q-tip around because you're just rubbing ink on top of ink otherwise. All right, so we've got that removed. I'm going to make sure that gets adhered into that paper as best it can, even though it's got that pigment on top. Okay, there we go. You can see it's very subtle back there. That's perfect. All right, so we're done with that. Then the next thing I do is I start stamping the flowers. And in this case, this one went about right there. And I used VersaFine Clear Summertime Orange. I think I'm going to come down just a little bit. Now these colors are a bit brighter, and there's always things you can do with your colored pencils. It's sticking to my finger. There we go. Move that over a tad. Okay. Like I said, I'm using the VersaFine Clear Summertime. It's really pretty. It's bright, but it's pretty. All right. Yep, that worked really well. I'm going to need to put this tape over here right now. And then I used the second one from the Woodland Florals, but I extended that over the end. And in this case, I am using Purple Delight VersaFine Clear. That works there. Whoops. Okay. That worked out really well. I'm not going to stamp that a second time either. And then I also stamped the orange again over on this side, using that one right there. Trying to balance it out a little bit with color as well as with design. The problem with this one is I've got the purple on it right now. It will make it dark. So I do need to wipe that off a little bit before I stamp it into another pad, because it will bleed onto my pad. So you make sure you wipe that off as best as you can so it doesn't bleed into your pad. That works out pretty good. Okay. All right. And this one's the orange, summertime orange. I didn't call it orange, I call it orange. It's just summertime. And I always try to look at the colors in the background too, and how I think things can complement each other when I put it on. And that's how I did the first one also, so. All right. This one's a little bit darker because it's on top of a darker color over here. So that makes it not as bright as this one over here. I think I'm going to stamp it one more time. I don't think it's going to make it any brighter because of the background. Like I said, it gives it all different look, depending on what you're doing. All right, so this stays the same. Okay. So the next thing that I did is I decided I was going to put some flowers inside of the cart. And again, I'm using the same florals, and I'm going to be placing these inside. And I like the fact like that line is very subtle. Make sure I've got this going the right way around. And I don't have to clean off the stamp because I'm using the same color as I used when I did my first one, and I'm going to be using the Purple Delight again. All right. So basically all I've used so far are 2 stamp sets, and I'll be using a sentiment, so it'll be a total of 3. And it makes this really pretty card. Well, actually I take that back. It's going to be 4 because I'm putting a little fairy up here at the top. So that looks really good in there. And I really like I said, I don't know if you can see, there's a shimmer. It's so pretty. A shimmer from the pigment powders I used. This set could also have, what came in the last release is a treat set could fit inside of there also, but I was going with a floral theme this time. All right, we're good. That looks great. So, in terms of stamping, one more item, actually 2 more items. I need I can do the sentiment first, and I think I need to find my little itty bitty fairy. I think I put her back. I forgot to leave her out. We'll go ahead and do this, and then I'll go get the fairy. For this, I went ahead and used the black. It's the only thing on the whole thing I used in terms of black. Well, and the fairy. Because the fairy will stand out better because I put her on the top of the cart. Okay. There you go, stamped perfect. So I'm going to go ahead and get my little fairy, and I'll be right back. Okay, so I found my little fairy. She's sitting right there on the top of the cart. And I'm going to get her stamped. And I'm using the Black Nocturne, VersaFine Clair Nocturne. And she's sitting right there on top. So we've got everything stamped. The next thing that I do is I do a little bit of coloring, and I do a little bit right here. I think I'll do that first. I do a little bit of grounding on the bottom, so it looks like the cart is actually sitting on something. So let's do that really fast. And then we'll do some coloring with pencils. Okay. Another thing I did on the other one is I did a moon. I'm not really sure that's going to work on this one, but we can check it out and see. I might have to go with a different color if I do a moon, because there's so much of this color up here, it will not show. But I'm going to do the bottom first. Like I said, every time you do this, it's different, and you just adjust to whatever. So I've got my favorite torn piece of paper, and I want to get that cart sitting on a hill. And in order to do that, I'm going to use the Peacock Feathers again and make my little hill. Let's take a peek. Okay, that looks pretty good. And then I want to get that little bit of the flowers sitting on the hill as well. There we go. So that's sitting on the hill. And now, like I said, I'm going to check out what I'm going to do for this moon. And I believe I'm going to have to use a different color. And I think what I'm going to do, because there's different colors in the background, I'm going to pull out chipped sapphire, because I think that's going to work better to put that moon back there. So I'm going to get that, and I'll be right back. Okay, so I'm back with chipped sapphire, and I think that's what's going to work for this. It needs to be darker than the same color. And I'm just going to go, well, it would have been nicer if that would have, my ink would have worked better, but it didn't. So I'm going to probably have to fix that. I had forgotten that I had last two times added the refill to my ink, and it tends to blotch a little bit more now for me, so it's not being as helpful for blending. But I'm going to have to fix that. I'm going to have to fix my little error right there, which I'll be able to do. But for right now, I'm going to blend that a little bit so it blends in, and then come back and fix that. Okay. It does give us our moon. Okay, so I want you to see how I am fixing my blob. And again, I'm doing my trusty little Q-tip swabs, and I don't have it saturated with water, but I have a little bit of water on it. And basically, it's really roughing up the fibers a little bit on top, but because of where it's at, it is allowing me to take just a little bit of that ink off and blend it in. Now, it's true, you know that that was there. But if you had not seen this picture and me doing that, you might not even recognize that that's not part of my design, because it does work well. I think I am going to blend this in better with the outside, but I have to wait for that to dry because it will stick to it more. But I'm going to come back with the Peacock Feathers, and I'm going to go over this a little bit with the Peacock Feathers, and I'll be right back. Okay, so I am back, and I'm going to use the Peacock Feathers. I dried that up a little bit first, and I'm going to just very lightly, and it's going to give me another scrape. It could very well be my brush is getting old. right. I think one other thing I'm going to do, see if this helps. This is, like I said, what kind of things you do when you're doing your own fixing stuff. I'm not going to trash something that I really like. So I put just a little bit of water on my brush, and I'm very lightly working on that to smooth it out. And it's working. I think you can see that that's working because it reacts to water. All right, I'm happy with that. So I'm going to go ahead and get my pencils and we're going to get going. Okay, so I'm going to get started coloring, and I'm using Prismacolor pencils. And the first thing I did for my last one is I used 994, and I've lost my color for this one, but it was something red, and I don't remember what the color is. I should remember because it's something I obviously used all the time. All I'm going to do for this is I make sure I have a sharp pencil lead, and I'm just going to go around the outside of each one. And usually I take a lot more time at this, of these flowers. And it's not so bad. There's not that many really. And it doesn't have to be perfect. It's just to give you a little bit more definition and some outline. It could even be a brighter outside color, but the pink worked all together with what I was doing. Hoping that you're able to see what I'm drawing. I try to get a little bit closer, which makes it harder for me to actually see what I'm doing. All right, so those are the three on top. Then the ones right here that are tiny, all I did was I put a bright color in the center of those. A bright pink center. There's a couple of them. And there's one more. Okay, so then again, there's a couple more here to outline. All right. This really is a simple way to enhance if you want to enhance what you already have. So that's what I used on those flowers. And then I also came back in with a bright center, it's called Dahlia Purple 1009. And all I did was I made some bright dots in the center. Now here's the deal. I come back in at the end of coloring and I do gold in the center as well, gold sparkle. So seeing as I have this pencil out, I think I've got all those centers kind of done. What I also do is I come back in and I went around each one of these, but this one's really pretty much the same color as that now. When I stamped it before, it was a little bit lighter, probably for my stamping, so I don't need so much of that. But I do need the mulberry. It's a little bit lighter color, and I had gone just inside of that. But I'm not seeing that it's making as much of a difference. Like I said, every time I do this, something's different. So this one's not giving me much more of a color contrast. I might have to pull out a different color. Yeah, it's not giving me a lot of color contrast like I had on the other one. However, I did put this orange in the centers. Okay. So that part I did. I might come back in, like I said, and see if I can find a darker color for the outside. For this side, because it doesn't really have a color that I really wanted, I came back in with a different color completely. This is a light aqua 992. And I basically just colored the centers of these in. So there was a little bit more work involved in this one. But it was because I wanted a little bit of contrast. And I didn't really want that color. I liked the orange, but for this to have the dark color, I wasn't as excited. So I just wanted you to see how you can change this out. And if I can close enough for you to really see some of this. Let me get a little bit closer. Here. And finish off this one right here. Alright, and then what I did was I went around with a darker color, and this one is a cobalt turquoise 10 or 105, and I did outline each one of these with this color. I think it helped this flower out a little bit. So it always tells you that even if you stamp something in a color, you can come back in with a pencil lots of times. There are pencils out there that will cover color over dark colors too, and I've not done a video using those yet, but it works as well. They're specific for black construction type paper, but black paper. All right. I think you can see how that changes that flower out. It's the same one as this one over here, exact same flower. And it just shows you how you can change it out. All right, and then for the center of the hose, I also used the orange. Because originally they were supposed to be an orange flower, but that's not how they turned out. All right, so those flowers, other than I might come back in with a darker, I'm gonna see if I can find a darker really quick. Let me see. This might not work, but let's just look. Well, that does come back out dark, a little bit darker, but not a lot. I really wanted it a little bit more prominent than that. That's not too bad. And again, they don't even have to really totally follow the outlines of your flower. I'm just trying to highlight it a little bit. All right, so the next thing I'm going to do after this is I'm going to be coloring in what is on the in the cart, the flowers in the cart. All right, that added to that one really well. And for the ones in the cart, I really didn't do a whole lot to them, but I did add the orange to the centers. Because they're tiny, it is really hard to outline these. But you can do the centers. I think I got, oh, here's one. It's hard to see it. And another one. All right, so those are done inside of there. And then, let's see, oh yes, we have the fairy's wings. I did use the orange also on her wings. Doesn't take very much really. Okay, so then for the flowers at the top of the cart, I used the pink that I did the outline. All I did was I went just around each one of them And then once we're done with this, two more things. I add the gold sparkle pretty much for every center thing. Oh, yeah, I did that for the centers, but before I do that, I have to color in, which doesn't have to be colored in depending on how you inked it up. I actually color in the cart. I actually color this in as well. And I do that in keeping with the color that I used and what's underneath. For the original one, there was a streak of orange through it from when I did the pigment powders. This one has a little bit of purple and a little bit of blue, but I'm also keeping with the warm breeze color and adding that to the edge, to the side, to give it a little bit more character. I'm going to keep that one out, and then I'm also going to be using that one. I don't know if I told you, that one was the cobalt turquoise, and then I'm going to be using, this one was the non-photo blue. And the non-photo blue I'm coming across, blend it in with what's there. Because I don't want to cover up what's there, because I think it's pretty having that purple and a little bit of blue, more like a navy blue in there. I think that's pretty. So I'm not really trying to cover that up. Just trying to add to it. And that's how the cart would end up looking. And I think that looks really pretty good. Okay. So then, let's see if I've got everything I wanted to color. I think so. So, one other thing I did was I got out my little tiny hole punch, and I punched a hole in the middle of this wheel. And I actually put a tiny gold brad. And the reason I'm doing the gold is because that's what I'm using for the highlight of everything. But you can actually use any color depending on what you want. It's going to work out really well once you see the highlights of the gold pin. You see, you can do that. That can be your wheel, spoke, or cap, or whatever you call them, wheel cap. And that works really well for that. And then my gold sparkly pen. And that's what I use, Pintail Sparkle Pen. And this is a gold one. And like I said, I'm going to start at the top and go down so I don't put my hand in it. So I'm going in the centers of each one of these flowers. Not really staying right on the same dots, just kind of like adding in the general area. So that's, you can see how that works. I think you can, there we go. And then I'm going to do that in the, just a couple centers in the flowers in the cart. Actually, for the recipient, this actually is pretty when they get to actually see the sparkle for real. Not just in the video, it's kind of cool. All right, come back in like I told you I did for each one of these flowers. This is like a go-to tool for me. I think I use it just about every time now. If it's appropriate to use this gold sparkly pen, because I just absolutely love the highlights it gives. It's super pretty. Okay, so that's it. That is making the entire card. And like I said, each one of them is different. I did go ahead and frame this one out, mat it with a mirror card or a metallic card that matched pretty well with the spoke on the, or the wheel cap, whatever you want to call it. So I hope you enjoyed that. There was actually several techniques in there you could try, not even, you know, just doing the gel press. You can use a bigger one and do the exact same thing that I did with this and do your whole entire card, which would be really cool. And but I also showed you how you can add your stencil too to this. And anyway, it was really pretty and fun to make. So I hope you enjoyed that, and I will have my supplies listed below. Thanks so much for stopping by.